Welcome, everyone, to another episode of English with Monica and Cajun. I'm Monica, and with me, as always, is the wonderful Cajun.
Hey there, y'all. So glad to be back. And Monica, today we're tackling a real classic, aren't we? One that probably gives every English learner at least a momentary pause.
Absolutely. It's one of those grammar points that seems straightforward on paper, but in practice, it consistently trips people up. We're talking about she don't versus she doesn't.
Oh, the infamous she don't. I hear it all the time, even from native speakers, sometimes, depending on where you are. But for learners, it's such a sticky wicket, you know?
It really is. And I think part of the confusion stems from the fact that don't is so pervasive in informal speech, in music, in certain dialects. So if you're learning English by immersion, or even just listening to a lot of media, you're going to encounter she don't quite a bit.
That's so true. You pick it up naturally, and then someone tells you, no, that's wrong. And you're like, but I heard it on a song. It's a real head scratcher.
Exactly. So let's just lay down the golden rule right at the top for clarity. In standard English with third-person singular subjects, that's he, she, it, or any singular noun like the cat, my friend, the company, we use doesn't.
So it's, he doesn't like broccoli. She doesn't want to go. It doesn't work. Simple enough, right?
On the surface, yes. And then for everything else, I, you, we, they, or plural nouns, we use don't. So I don't know, you don't understand, we don't care, they don't live here, the dogs don't bark.
Okay, so the basic rule is pretty clear. But why is it so hard for people to actually implement it consistently, especially that she doesn't part?
Well, I think one major reason is the connection to the simple present tense. Think about it. He runs, she eats, it works. We add ends or is do the verb for third person singular. And when we make it negative, the do auxiliary verb takes that's ending.
Ah, you're talking about do becoming does in the third person. So she does not then contracts to she doesn't.
Exactly. This moves from the main verb to the auxiliary verb. So you say she runs, but she doesn't run. Notice this ends is now on does, and run goes back to its base form.
Oh, that's a huge point right there. Because if someone hears she runs and then they try to make it negative, they might accidentally say she don't runs or something, keeping this beneficial on the main verb.
Precisely. Or they might just default to don't for everything because it feels simpler, or it's what they hear in informal contexts. The English language loves its irregularities and exceptions, and sometimes it can feel like you're navigating a linguistic minefield.
It definitely does. I remember when I was learning Spanish, all the verb conjugations felt like that. You get one rule down, and then boom, here's a whole new set of rules for this one particular verb or tense. English is no different.
It's true. And let's not forget about the influence of what we call non-standard English, or dialectal variations. In many parts of the English-speaking world, he don't, or she don't, is perfectly acceptable in casual conversation.
Oh yeah, you hear it a lot in certain regions in the U.S. for sure. Even in some popular culture like songs or movies, it's used to give characters a more authentic or down-to-earth feel. So learners are hearing it everywhere.
Right. So a learner who is trying to speak correctly according to standard grammar rules can feel very confused because they're getting mixed signals. It's a tricky balance between what's grammatically correct and what's socially acceptable in different contexts.
So how do we guide them through this? How do we tell them, hey, listen, you might hear this, but if you're writing an essay or speaking in a more formal setting, stick to doesn't.
That's the key. It's about awareness and context. For learners, it's crucial to understand that she doesn't is the standard, grammatically correct form. This is what you'd use in professional settings, academic writing, formal presentations, and generally when you want to be understood by the broadest audience without any linguistic misunderstandings.
And she don't is more like seasoning, right? You add it when you want a specific flavor, a specific informal tone, but it's not the main ingredient for clear communication.
That's a fantastic analogy, Cajun. It's exactly like that. You wouldn't put extra spice in every dish, would you? Sometimes you want a plain, clear flavor, and sometimes you want to spice things up, but you need to know the basic recipe first.
I love that. So for those who are struggling, what are some practical ways to reinforce doesn't in their minds and their speech?
Repetition, repetition, repetition. Seriously, create flashcards, make sentences, practice out loud. When you're speaking, pause for a second if you're about to say don't with a he, she, it, and consciously correct yourself.
I think role playing could be really helpful too. Like imagine you're giving a presentation or you're interviewing for a job. Those are the moments when you really want to nail that standard grammar.
Absolutely. Another good trick is to always think of the positive form first. If the positive form uses ends, he works, she sleeps, then the negative form will use doesn't, he doesn't work, she doesn't sleep. If the positive form doesn't use ends, I work, they sleep, then the negative form uses don't, I don't work, they don't sleep.
That's a really solid mnemonic device right there. Link this in the positive statement to this is in doesn't for the negative. That's a game changer for a lot of people, I bet.
I hope so. And it's not just about do and does. This is for third-person singular is a foundational element of English present tense. It shows up in has instead of have, and in most regular verbs.
So mastering doesn't isn't just about doesn't, it's about understanding a core building block of English grammar, right? It's like a gateway to a deeper understanding.
Precisely. And let's not forget about questions. The same rule applies there. We use does he, does she, does it, not do he, does it, like does she like coffee, instead of do she like coffee?
Got it. And again, the main verb goes back to its base form. Does she like coffee, not does she likes coffee?
Yes, that's another common mistake. Once you introduce does or doesn't, the main verb sheds its is. It's like this ends only appears once per verb phrase in the third-person singular present tense.
That's an excellent way to think about it. This es has its moment in the spotlight and then it's done, once per turn.
Exactly. Think of it as a rule of economy. English doesn't like to repeat that is sound unnecessarily. It puts it on the first auxiliary verb it finds.
Okay, so let's recap some of these pitfalls for our listeners. First, the influence of informal speech and dialects. That's a big one.
Yes, absolutely. Learners need to be aware of the difference between standard and non-standard English and choose their register appropriately. It's not about one being better, but about being effective in different contexts.
Second, the confusion with this is on the main verb in positive statements. People might forget to drop it when they use doesn't.
That's a very common one. Remembering that ends only appears once is key. She runs, she doesn't run, knows on run in the negative.
And third, just the sheer number of different forms for do and does depending on the subject. It can feel overwhelming at first.
It can, but if you break it down, it's really just two forms, do for I, you, they, and does for he, she, it. Then you add not and contract them. Simple in theory, harder in practice, but manageable with consistent effort.
I mean, how many times have I said I could care less when I really meant I couldn't care less? We all make these little slips, even as native speakers. So don't be too hard on yourselves, learners.
That's a great point, Cajun. Language learning is a journey, not a destination, and even native speakers can struggle with certain grammatical nuances or informal usages that diverge from standard rules. The goal is progress, not perfection.
So for anyone feeling frustrated by she doesn't, just keep practicing. Read English books, watch shows, listen to podcasts like this one, and pay attention to how native speakers use these forms.
And try to consciously produce the correct forms. The more you say she doesn't correctly, the more natural it will feel, and the more ingrained it will become in your linguistic muscle memory.
It's all about building those new pathways in your brain, isn't it? Replacing the old habits with the new, correct ones.
Exactly. And remember, context is king. If you're chatting with friends, a casual she don't might fly. But if you're in a formal setting or trying to convey professionalism, she doesn't is always the way to go.
So if your boss asks if the report doesn't have any errors, you definitely don't want to say it don't got any errors, right?
Exactly. That would be a very different message than what you're intending to convey. Precision matters, especially in professional communication.
This has been super helpful, Monica. I feel like we've really broken down why this particular phrase is such a common point of confusion and given some good tools to tackle it.
I hope so too. It's a fundamental part of mastering the simple present tense in English, and once you've got this down, a lot of other grammatical structures will start to make more sense.
So to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, she doesn't is your friend in standard English.
Indeed. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process. Just be aware of them and strive for improvement. That's all for this episode of English with Monica and Cajun. Thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank y'all so much for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.